So I and my colleagues here are here to talk about fandom of color. I have been studying anime and writing about it and watching it. Well, I can't say watching it because I've been watching it like all my life, but studying and writing about it for about 20 something years. And I'm just really old. And so I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves and then we're going to get started.
Well, I'm Darwin Archie-Pettis. I don't got no doctor in front of my name, but there's a master's behind it. And that's been like 2 weeks, so I'm very proud of that.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Well, thank you. I've always been interested in this. I've never found other people around me that was on board, and we just so happened to be neighbors at work, and we started to talk, and it's expanded from there. We are originally 4 deep. But one person couldn't make it, but he actually helped us introduce to us two, and so it's been a really great experience. The conversations that we're able to have now, even dating back to what anime brought you in, we love that one. And so I've been on anime my entire life as well, whether people liked it or not, and I'm just so happy that we can be talking about this.
Awesome. So, hey, I'm Jerry, and I am also not doctorate yet. I say that because I'd love to do it in the future, but yes, master's as well. And yeah, got luckily kind of brought into this, which I was really excited about because I was like, yeah, I've been into this also my whole life. Been to anime and manga, been to A-Kon. I mean, I think like 7 times prior to this. So, a return attendee here at A-Kon, so been many times, and just been a part of born and raised Oklahoma, but have loved every minute of it. But really excited to even kind of dip my toes into the research side. I think that's something that's always interested me. As some, with my master's of education, I've always tried to blend and think about where those intersect, the intersections of education, fandom, etc., which is something that I'll definitely be talking a little bit more about how it's presented itself in my work as we get later into this. But really lucky to have gotten brought in through our mutual connect who isn't here, but really excited to have been brought in anyway, and hopefully provide some awesome perspective tonight. So
awesome. All right, well, let's get started. First, we're going to talk about why do we study fandom of color? And for those of you who haven't been studying fandom, these are 2 of the most important texts: Textual Poachers by Henry Jenkins and The Cultural Economy of Fandom by John Fisk, which is an article actually. However, they both function to set fandom's agenda, one that is overwhelmingly white and male. And I'm just going to go on a little bit from here, and then we're going to talk about it. White fandoms have co-opted otherness while failing to engage with race, LGBTQ identities, and the intersections therein. In claiming otherness for white fandoms, largely because white fandom was initially studied as a fandom attached to geeks, the category otherness meant studying white heterosexual male Star Wars fans, leaving race generally and Blackness specifically to feed off the scraps it has left in its wake. This is from Fandom While Black, Misty Copeland, Black Panther, Tyler Perry, and the Contours of U.S. Black Fandoms by Alfred L. Martin Jr. What he's referring to is the fact that the definition of a fandom is based on these texts is an isolated, marginalized group, right? But every time they talk about these so-called marginalized groups, they don't talk about the main marginalization in the United States, which is race and then secondarily gender. I don't know, both of those together, actually. Let's not put one over the other because I don't know that. So based on just this quote right here, what does that, for you, how does that strike you?
Well, I could go. For me, it's no surprise at all. I feel like I used to dress up as a kid and I was kind of isolated, like, wait, what are you doing? You can't be that character. That character is white. And, it was a lot of that as I moved on growing up, and then even as a I feel like there's even more to do with it even than that. You have to fit into these little boxes, and so you can't be a geek or anime nerd and also be an athlete. And so for me, it's been like people been badgering my whole life, but it did not stop me from running home after practice or after school to go watch my shows.
Right. Yeah, I think something that kind of comes to mind, I saw something, it was like a quote, like a statement about how sometimes within like niche communities, individuals can like come in and even start to other within like that community. So this thought here like seems to even harken back to that a little bit. And I think that we've seen this almost occur, especially for me, someone who could be, I identify as Arab American, but someone who also could be seen as someone might look at me and think that I'm white or that I'm some other race or some other group. So that's caused an experience for me, especially where I've had to both kind of understand my own cultural identity and how it intersects with the things that I enjoy, as well as like, how do I even interact in those spaces without feeling certain about what I might identify as or how that might identify. So I think that this quote just brings that kind of the forefront of my mind, especially based on my own experiences growing up in communities that were predominantly Black. I had to sort of understand what I enjoyed, why I enjoyed it, and I almost felt like I was often having to defend why I was into the things that I was into, or why, if I was even allowed to or able to engage in it properly. I mean, that was a really unique thing. So I think that this statement kind of brings up a lot of those like recurrent thoughts from that childhood experience and what we get from that experience, and how that disseminates further, like the older we get, and how we even start to create those niche within niche groups, within any group, like within anime fandom specifically.
Now let's look at the next one. The next quote is from African American ACA fandom. ACA fandom is academic fandom, and it refers to scholars who are scholars. So I'm a fan of this, but I also study it. So influential scholarship on fans privileges a utopian understanding of fans in science fiction communities as being anti-racist and progressive. Yet, high-profile racist and misogynist speech and bullying demonstrate that some fans of speculative works depend on the centrality of whiteness or masculinity to take pleasure in the text. This refers to a lot of the early studies on fandom that kind of start with the Star Trek fandom and science fiction fandom, and start to look at what's going on there. And you're looking at, again, a mostly white, mostly male fan base, but at the same time, you're also looking at storylines that are about white males and about white masculinity. And so they other women automatically, and they other everyone else in the world.
BIPOC communities.
Right.
Yeah.
Or as I have recently learned to say, the global majority.
There you go.
That's a strong one.
Yeah. So let me get your reaction to that one.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I guess this immediately makes me think of, and I don't know if y'all are privy or interested in like the Star Wars universe right now, or the controversy around it. I don't know if that's,
yes.
I don't know. This immediately makes me think about what's happening right now, literally like today, essentially, as the episode 3 essentially of Obi-Wan has come out, and we have this Black female character playing an antagonist, right? So I won't go too far into it, but I just think that it's really interesting to see that this research, it like reflects.
Today.
When was this? I don't know when this quote comes from.
Sorry,
we don't. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So, yes, yeah, exactly. So there's been such a massive like media movement, and people are sending her death threats. The actress, who has nothing to do with and it's all, and I think that it all boils back to just some of this inherent misogyny and inherent, I mean, honestly, anti-Blackness that is occurring within the Star Wars community. That's been prevalent since probably far before this moment, but it's certainly bubbling to the top right now.
Even though James Earl Jones is the voice of Darwin.
Right.
Right. So yeah. So, but that's what this definitely brings to my mind, is just how this is not, even though maybe this is being this is still like, this is a really persistent issue that's been very prevalent.
But as much as I hate that it's happened, I almost like I'm happy that it's happened, because when people always think that, oh, we've moved so far,
Right.
this doesn't happen anymore. What are you talking about? And I hear it all the time when we're talking. They're like, bring up the last time. Like, dang, now let me do some research. No, bring it up. And so it's kind of annoying, because it's like you always have to be prepared with proof.
Right.
Otherwise, people don't even want to hear it. And see, with this, it also brings it back to, I mean, not even that much further back. Before Black Panther came out, they said that there could not be any Black lead in a superhero movie in which would actually sell.
Mhm.
And so obviously that was a lie.
Yeah.
But it's been a common theme, and it's why it took so long for them to really present somebody, because if they do research just like the rest of us.
Mhm.
And no matter how small or big the research goes. And so they believed as well that it's not possible to do this. And Black Panther kind of just blew everything up.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. But I felt it right away, like, really, like, this is what took it so long. And but we got a great movie out of it. We changed the minds of so many. And it just shows, like, how long ago was that? Like,
Oh my
five,
goodness.
5, 6, 6.
Yeah,
6 years
yeah.
ago.
Yeah,
Was
it's
it?
Yeah,
been quite a while now.
yeah.
Yes.
But then, so I don't know.
At
It's like
least.
time
At
keeps
least
on
5 years. I think.
time
At
keeps
least
on coming
5 years,
together.
yeah.
5.
But
Yeah.
anyways, it was just amazing. Like, once that came out and it started shattering records and everything, it was the first time, like, you think that we've gotten this far. We're in like 2014, 15, whenever, and they're just now understanding that this is possible. Yeah, and now it opened up even more doors for them to explore all the other BIPOC community. We got Shang-Chi, and Kamala Khan is about to come out, and so it's like, I love that it's opened all the doors that should have been open a long time ago.
Definitely.
That is not the futuristic stuff we thought we were going to see after 2000.
Right? Okay, next. This is from another one from African American ACA fandom. In the United States, African American sports fans' attachment to athletes, particularly boxers and baseball stars, was historically a mechanism to make claims about Black equality and Black pride, and to bond over Black success. Such structures of feelings were also characteristic of African American fandoms attached to celebrities, film, and television. Black fandom can thus be both counter to white hegemony and normative in its adherence to ideological projects that treat Black people as representative of US culture instead of as outliers. Now, let me just kind of break that down a little bit. So the idea that this is about representation.
Mhm.
So that when we see a Black person in a film, right? Does that represent me? Is it represent me positively? Does it represent me negatively? Now, I'm not a sports person, but most of the research on fans, what little research has been done on Black fans, has to do with sports and music. Gee, is that stereotypical? Well, anyway. So, but that research has shown, and of course, I think a lot of us have seen just in our lives, that the focus is on, is this a good representation of me? Does this represent me well? And is this like, hey, see, we're making it, we're being successful. And in a way, it serves to take this community that's been marginalized and to put it in a place of, hey, see, we are the norm, right? We are representative of America just as anyone else is. So, and we'll see in a little bit how this also plays into how Black fans and Latino fans that I have found evidence from, and I imagine others, look for that representation when they're watching anime as well. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's I've noticed so much. It's like right now, a reel of all the stuff that I've ever watched is coming back, and so it's like, what comes to my mind right away is Naruto, which is one of my favorites, by the way. But it's like when you go to the Hidden Cloud, you got Killer B, right? He's trying to rap all the time. And it's like, this is like the first, you like, are they black? And why is he rapping? And they're horrible raps. Oh my God. Now his fighting skills are great, but it just makes me think of that right away. It's like we're attached almost every time we're attached to certain type of stereotypes, and and even if we can't even get into it, like I said at the beginning, because I was an athlete, people thought that I couldn't even go to my anime clubs because they're like, oh, you're a jock, you can't be here. And so it's crazy because you think, oh, well, this group marginalized this group, and you wouldn't expect it over here because you would think that it's more inclusive, but I legitimately couldn't do a lot of things just because I was an athlete too. And so as my athlete friends would down me for watching anime, I couldn't even go to the place that I thought that I would be welcome in the anime group. And even the theater group, they rebelled against me too. And I've been doing theater before I was even an athlete. So
that was very articulate. I'm like, I don't know if I have a lot more to add. I think on the representation front, it's very interesting because I know that for me and a lot of people in my life, because I want to go back to Killer B, I think, because on one hand, like I know that for me and a lot of my friends at the time, it was one of those moments where it felt like a big win for them. I had people that were telling me like, we are just happy to have a black character in Naruto. Like that was like such a massive point, but it was so contentious because of how stereotypical disrepresentative it was, maybe of like, not every black person raps while they speak, which Darwin kind of touched on. And I think that
angry.
It made it sort of this very difficult moment where you noticed like it was representation, but was that representation positive or negative? But people were taking to the character still, obviously because it was the only thing they really had to attach to. And it makes me think about a little bit about one of my favorite manga and anime of all time, Shaman King, and a character in Shaman King that was pretty aggressively problematic. But the author just didn't know that those stereotypes were so bad, mainly with the way the character was drawn with like very big lips, and then also the original name of the character. They were both just like very bad representations, but the author just didn't understand and thought that was representative. Even part of the storyline around that character was really interesting, as the character was essentially raised on the street by a gang in America and learned his shaman powers from a homeless person. So it was a and I think that Takei was trying very hard to do this. So in later editions, he actually went and redrew all of the panels for the character in order to kind of understand, like, to actually become better and realize that he was trying to honor and give some sort of representation to people in that. So I think that it's really an interesting line in anime and manga just because of some of the way misrepresentation, like in Japan, understanding some of the cultural things that are happening and coming up to date with it. So that's just what this makes me think on. So
is there anything specific in like Arab culture that you have seen in anime that you want to touch on?
It's when you think of Arab culture, especially, there's really not a great representation, if any, across anime and manga specifically. I mean, heck, we just had our first Arab person to win the Best Actor award at the Oscars just 2 or 3 years ago when Rami Malek won the award for his performance in the Queen movie. I can't think of what it's called. But that was yes, exactly. And prior to, I like to talk about my tattoo a lot because my tattoo is both a representation of my personal identity and culture, but I got it because it was the first time that there was a Arab Green Lantern introduced into the comic books for DC Comics. And when they introduced the character, it was written by someone who's actually Lebanese American like me. And he wrote the character to self-identify, kind of put himself in, and kind of had the opportunity to put that character in. And for me, that was just such a like big moment in my child life when I finally got to hold like a comic book with a character that was so directly reflective of me, both in experience and in growing up. So that's still a coming thing, and I don't know. I mean, I think that if you look at manga and anime, you'll have a hard time finding great representation of a lot of cultures outside of Japanese culture. And I think that it's mainly just because of how, there's still a lot of insular identity happening there. I can't think of a better word for it, but it's so you're having a tough time kind of getting that. The only series I can think of that even has any touch on like Arab culture is Maggie, which if you guys have seen that or heard of it, kind of a slightly older shonen series, has some Arab imaging and definitely some connection to some Arab identity too. So, but yeah, that's the only one I can even think of off the top of my head that has like a really prominent place with it. So
yeah, well, I'm kind of like, sadly, I'm kind of worried if they did do it within this time frame because as we talk about misrepresentation, and obviously there's not a lot of people that's writing these don't really have contact with the actual culture or the people, and so it's going to rely on media. And so right now, I feel like in between the last like 20 years, I would be a little scared of what would be represented. And so hopefully there is some representation that's coming soon.
Yeah.
And some that's going to be more on the positive side than the negative.
Hopefully so. We can get past United States cultural imperialism. Next, we should see fans as having a dialectical relationship to normativity that is not always explicit in fan studies and sometimes not acknowledged. Fan communities with women, queer subjects, and people of color often demonstrate the complicated tension between pre-existing sociopolitical otherness and chosen alterity. There's probably a lot of words in there, so let me there's a lot of words. So when they say dialectical relationship, think about that in terms of like it's having a conversation with, right? A back and forth. So when we in our culture, we think about the white male paradigm as normative. Okay, that's the norm, and then everyone else is in conversation with that norm. We're either going to try to align with the norm, or we're going to resist the norm, or we're going to try in some way to position ourselves with relationship to that norm. And what this author is saying is that in fan studies, this huge thing that goes on all the time in every other area is not being addressed, and either with fans' relationships with each other or fans' relationship with the content. And then the next part, demonstrating a complicated tension between pre-existing sociopolitical otherness and chosen alterity. Pre-existing sociopolitical otherness is like where we are. We are sociopolitical others. However, when we choose to align ourselves in a marginalized group as fandom, we're choosing another other. We've othered ourselves in relationship to the norm of the rest of society. And this is a situation in which if we are people of color, we are already othered, and then we chose another othering, and then we become othered within that chosen other. And this is something that fans have to deal with a lot, and yet fan studies, not looking at, right? Hold forth, gentlemen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could kind of go straight into something that I already talked about, because as an athlete and a Black athlete at that, I told you I was isolated out of the anime group, because how could I can't be truly into this because I'm an athlete, I'm strong, I'm probably a bully. And so, and which I've never been. If anything, I'll bully the bully, because I watched anime. Come on now, we know. And so, I've always felt that othering, and that's why I was really happy. Like first off, being a fan, and the fandom whole thing. We know that popular culture did not like this just a few years ago, and so now everybody wants to accept fandom within. Which I even one of my old students from my Upper Bound program posted, "Oh, now people are fans after 2000. Where were y'all when I was young?" Because there's no way you could be popular and have anime or comic books or Star Wars or any of this. You were a weirdo a lot of times. And there was a great thing that one of my let me go to it actually. This here we go. I saved it because it was, and it just happened yesterday. I was like, yes, they just knew what was going on. Just give me a sec. So one of my other students had made a post because she was one of the bravest souls that I had in my program. Like she loved anime and she wanted the world. Like they don't need to know, but I'm going to be me. And so she stated, I was the weird kid who loved anime in grade and middle school and always drew it, which amazing drawer. She's an artist. I can't draw, so don't look at my stuff. It might be squiggly lines. But what my other student said really hit hard. He said, I remember, but weird, no, back then was just a weird time in general. But your art, fire. Oh, 4 fires. Unmatched at your age. You solid. And so it just hit because it's like, I was happy to have been there as an anime fan and to be that elder for them where they knew that they felt very comfortable. And, she even made that comment once we started talking of how how important it was to actually have an elder there that made their comfort zone even more comfortable. And so, I've seen the others, and like I said, she was picked on a lot, and she just kept going. And oh my God, I wish I had some of her art here right now. I'm jealous because I do not possess those skills. But I mean, it's I think that everybody here has felt this at some point.
Right. Yeah, I think all I can add is with that same mentality, I think that one thing I've been told in the past or I've heard in the past about myself is oftentimes people, and I don't know if you guys ever heard this, but like someone will look at me and say like, oh, you don't look like an anime fan, which is like a really weird thing to say to someone, which I don't really know what that means still. But I've also heard people use it reverse, like, oh, this dude looks like he's into anime, but not about me. And so I think my whole life I had a bit of tension with that because it was such a big part of my identity, even as like a small child. Mm-hmm. I think that it was always sort of coming to terms with that, especially in wanting to do other things or be other things that weren't just that. But I love this concept of like connecting with students specifically. I think for me, it's just this moment where you're able to look at a student and when they realize like how much you know about the things that they love, mm-hmm. there's this moment where they really feel seen. And for me, that's been a big part of how my work currently has been effective. And it's when I see a student come in and they are able to know that like, not only do they see me on an identity level and they're like, oh, I know that this is a space I can be in, but this person sees me on a personal level, on a level that's beyond that. And I think that that just boils down to just this fact that I've been able to consume as much, more than many of them, and help them even get more into things that they've liked or enjoyed, things that matter to them. So I found it to be so important when you can find those moments, because it just helps people to feel like they matter. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the through line through this is like identifying and making people feel like they matter. So.
And do any of you have a story that you want to share of like a time where you really felt othered? And go ahead. I wish this went out there. Okay. And it is great to be able to validate kids that way, and right. Like when they know that you're also. I don't know how, but 7th grade Kyle found out about all stuff somehow.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, cool.
You know, the internet's a wide place. Right.
What was that?
I would assign manga.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. As part of teaching,
yeah.
Manga. I would assign anime to analog.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you like anime?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want me to give you a list?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yes, a scroll. That's the best part. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And we got anybody to share in the back?
Thoughts?
Okay. Well, very good. Oh, another.
Yeah.
I guess it reminded me of something.
like being on the internet and being like in a small town that kind of connected you with that. I definitely feel like you take part in some way. But at that time, it definitely felt like your role was always going to be delegated to see yourself in conflict or these other more visible parts of that.
Right.
Wow, I love that. I'm happy you brought that up.
Yeah.
I'm really
yes.
glad, because that is actually going to play into exactly what we're going into next, which is some examples of BIPOC fan experiences. What is it like when you're the only Black person in the room watching some anime? This is from a blog called Rude Girl Blog, which has gone private for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, it's from her post of a search for Black fandom. There's some language, so I hope cover your little ears.
Yeah.
All right. Sometimes fandom is like watching a movie with a room full of white people. When someone does something kind of shady and racist, you want to lean over and be like, this motherfucker just really, but then you realize you're the only Black person there. So you have to weigh whether or not you're in the mood for bullshit, because that's what you'll get by bringing this up with white people.
So this is like the subs instead of the dubs.
Okay, so and I didn't put this other quote in there, but what she goes on to talk about is how very often when a person of color expresses something about or being offended by something, or expresses that something has been racist, or a slight has been made, or a slur has been uttered, many times white people around them will invalidate their experience by saying, oh, that's not this, or it doesn't mean that, or you're just being too sensitive, and so forth. And so then you'd have to try to explain then what's going on, while they're constantly invalidating what you experienced as a racial slight. And that's what she means by bullshit, which she explains in the next sentence, but I didn't put that one in there. So have you guys experienced anything like that? How does her experience match with yours?
Yeah, it made me think of a story experience that I recently had with a close buddy of mine. And I think it was interesting. So I'm not sure how familiar people are. There's a movie that came out, Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse, right? The animated film with Miles Morales. And then recently, or kind of recently, there was a trailer that dropped for the upcoming sequel to said film. And a buddy of mine, a close friend, was just having a conversation with me originally about how upset he was because they had changed some of the textures that were utilized for Miles's hair, going from the first film to the second film. That a lot of people and fans on Twitter, and Twitter is not always great, but sometimes sometimes it makes good points. Some fans on Twitter had pointed out that it kind of almost whitened up Miles a little bit, kind of made his look a little bit more presentable potentially to white people. And he and I were having this conversation about it, yada yada, and he wanted to put it into a group. It was literally like a Discord. It was a Discord chat that we have with a group of just a handbasket of different fans and so on and so forth. I said, yeah, I'm sure they'll be receptive, yada yada. And generally, he's like hesitant maybe to say something like it, but he just like threw it in there, and it turned into this like whole like mess where all these these guys that we thought were our buddies just did not seem to understand like what the perspective was. I mean, it was literally like this example, but like IRL, like it was like this really was happening. But he decided to put it out there, and it was just such a kind of like a discerning moment where he was just like, I just don't, he just wanted to express to them that it made him upset or that he felt bad about it. He wasn't trying to start a conversation, or he just wanted to tell his friends like, hey, like I just wish this, yada yada. But it turned into this like, well, why do you see it like that, or like what are you saying about his hair, or like what which was such a strange. My buddy, he's a black guy, and it was like a direct, like he had a direct experience, and it was just like it was disheartening. And I know he and I went, as we were talking about it, we were just like, yeah, we're just gonna let that slide, and that's kind of how he felt like he had to do, like he just isn't gonna bring it up again, kind of thing. I think that's a tense experience that a lot of people, I mean, they experience this exact scenario more than you might think, I guess.
Yeah, and right away, stepping a little bit out of anime, but just in the whole, fandom world. I did watch and also read about how the backlash of Ahura in Star Trek, back in the day. And it was so much so that she was actually going to quit. And what's even more powerful is who convinced her to stay. I don't know if any of you have read or heard, but Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is actually the reason why she stayed. He actually had a great talk with her, and he told her how important she was for the whole world. I mean, can you imagine that? Like, she's still alive today to tell the story about how Dr. King, of all people, is the reason why she stayed on Star Trek, which, don't tell all fandom not to come after me. Star Wars is in my head because I just started watching Obi-Wan. But yeah, it's amazing to have that story still, that we've gotten these great passionate moments from Star Trek. Okay. 10 minutes. But yeah, no, but there's just been so many other situations where, I've heard people, if you like Twitterverse, any of the sites, our words not validate, or we have to become full-fledged professors just to get our point across. Which
that's why I did it. No. Darn it, someone's gonna listen to me today. Here's a Latinx version. This is from Angeli Mercado. The name of the blog isn't on here, but the article, My Road to Finding Better Latinx Representation in Anime. You'd think it would have made me happy to see somebody who looked like me in my favorite entertainment medium, but it was the opposite. Every time I saw someone in an anime who was even somewhat similar to me or any of the other Latinx I knew, I cringed. They weren't whole characters. They weren't even slightly likable. Instead, those characters highlighted people like me as a caricature. It was painful that I had to see that on television in a lot of Hollywood movies and now in anime too. So I think like we've kind of gotten that issue that this is another way that fans of color end up feeling othered, and they watch. There's a term called the resisting reader. So you're the reader that is not the audience of the message that you're reading, and so therefore you're supposed to be able to identify with your character that you're reading or you're watching on TV or whatever. There's an idea that you will identify with this character, but you're always actually someone who is not that person, and you are distanced from the text in a lot of ways so that you don't actually get to enjoy it in the exact same way that someone else or the intended audience would. And there's some more stuff that goes along with that, but I want to be mindful of time. I want to kind of get a little bit ahead. This one, I don't really expect to see myself represented in anime because the shows I've watched over the years have so rarely included Black characters. So when I do see a Black character, I'm instantly drawn to them. This might be partly why I grew to love Naruto so much, because it has quite a few respectfully drawn Black and brown characters. Representation is incredibly important to me, but with anime, it's complicated by the fact that I have such low expectations for Black representation. I don't expect it, and I try to ignore the bad examples because I don't want it to affect my enjoyment of the genre, but I think it has to a certain degree. So that is another example that shows how resisting readers, my grammar, it shows what resisting readers that people of color have to be in a genre like anime, where you are constantly being, well, I just have to accept this. I just have to put up with this slight. I have to put up with this offense. What happened there? Gee, what did happen there? Oh, that's what happened there. There's some videos. Did I go back? Did I go too far?
How long is that one?
Oh, they're too long. We were just gonna. Oh no!
This is Dragon Ball Z, my very first introduction to the world of anime. And this is my cousin Dujon. I watched Dragon Ball at his house.
Sick! I didn't even know you had the merch.
I've got probably about 5 or 6 t-shirts.
There's just something about it. Dragon Ball Z to me is like the gateway to manga and anime.
But this is also Dragon Ball Z.
The first time I ever saw Mr. Popo, I remember just thinking, well, why did he look like that? I think that was actually my first introduction to what comic books were.
And this is quite a common portrayal of black people in anime. And yet, anime has a big black fan base.
A lot of people seem to kind of think that racism doesn't exist in Japan, and of course that's not true.
To be a fan is to be cheering in one scene and like hiding your head the next.
All right.
First of
Okay.
all, let's get something straight. I'm definitely not here
All right,
to
okay, I'm
cancel
not gonna
anime.
stop.
But as a black fan, I am here to say
Okay, okay. Sorry, I just want to get that kind of introduction out there because you notice the gollywog doll. Now, a lot of us in the United States, we don't know what a gollywog is, but it's a very, well, you saw it. It's like a black Raggedy Ann, but like pitch black with a big old red smile. And this is a slave caricature that became a child's toy, a beloved child's toy for many people in England and English colonies, English settlements all over the world. So Australians know about the gollywog. The Japanese through Australia know about the gollywog. Everybody in India knows about the gollywog. They love their gollywogs. No, right? And so when we look at that in America, because we have become very sensitive to these things, okay, we're horrified when we see that. So when we see Mr. Popo, we're horrified. There's another, I don't know where we are anymore. I'll just go.
This is Dragon Ball Z.
The next one. Let's do the positive things now. So now we have what's called a blurred. Who knows what a blurred is?
We got a couple in there.
It's a black nerd. Black nerds are blurs. I know. And so now people have come up with, there's a lot of blurred things. There's blurred blogs. There's blurred groups. There's blurred con. So these people, so fans in this, othered situation are now, they're taking their own power and are doing things to make themselves known or
blurred without fear.
Blurred without fear, being fearless. Let's see just a couple of seconds of this. This is all right, there they are, happy blurs, able to do what they want and not be not have to feel weird about it, or like people are gonna think about them funny. Okay. But also coming to a venue near you is DreamCon. I just forgot. It's not down here, so I didn't pay attention. I'm not going, so I didn't pay attention. DreamCon is actually in Arlington, and it is created by RDC World. And let me, can you introduce RDC World?
Oh yeah. So I really got into RDC World years ago. It was some of the first representation that I've seen. It was one of the first YouTubes or blogs that I've seen that really represented like Black people into anime. Like, they exist, but when you never see it, just you feel like you're the only one. And I'm sure that everybody felt that way in some type of area. And so they do all types of skits. They do back and forth talking about anime. They take responses. But they've started really, really small, just doing little skits of anime and inserting Black faces in those. and it was amazing. Like I felt like, and they're younger than me, but I felt like these are my heroes. But they were so small before, and they're right here in Texas, but now they've blown up so much that they have DreamCon, and so it shows that it was something that was necessary, because a lot of times, as I said myself, I used to dress up and people told me I could not dress up as this. Like, well, I don't have that many characters to dress up. I'm not dressing up as Popo.
Yeah.
And so it's like I couldn't even be my favorite character. And so having something like this where I could literally dress up as anybody I wanted felt so empowering. Like I was gonna do it anyways, but I'm just saying
right,
it was met with a lot of backlash.
Right.
Well, I'm saying forever. I never cared.
let me want to do a couple seconds of this. Okay, not. Oh, here we go.
I'm really just grateful for everything. Honestly, that's the first feeling that I feel like just walking out and seeing like a long line of people. Like it's a multi-hyphenate, you know. It has a lot of different things. It's an anime convention, it's a gaming convention, pop culture convention, and really just a place for like-minded people who chase dreams to come and meet other people who's on them same goals.
Okay, I think that kind of gets the idea about what's going on there.
It's by the way, it's coming up in I think it's about 6 weeks from now.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of attending last year, and it was awesome. So if anyone has the opportunity to go, I mean, it's right down the road, obviously drivable from here. So if you're local, and it is such a wonderful and fulfilling space. And I think that for a lot of people there, that is really what it was like a space, whether the panels or the vendor room or whatever, like everyone was just happy to be in the presence of each other. And I think that was like such a big just moment. I had the pleasure of doing a panel at DreamCon last year too. And gosh, it was just super fulfilling and just really wonderful to just meet, connect, and just be around people. I mean, it was just awesome. And RDC is, big part of, I think, a lot of people of color that are into anime right now. They're heroes. That really, truly, you put it right, Darwin. Like,
and they look like they got people that look like everything.
Yeah. And it's just such an important, it's so important. And they were such great guys. They walked around the convention floor the whole time. Just literally, like, I sat and talked to one of the guys for a minute. Just super down to earth, even though they have like millions of subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think they're over like 5 million now.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it was crazy how just they didn't seem to care about in that space. It was truly a space that they wanted to cultivate. So just such an awesome thing that's happening here in Texas too. I love that.
Yeah.
And what I love about it too is because a lot of times when you see Black faces attached to things, a lot of people think that it's only for Black people. And that's one of the things that's a huge misconception. And I hate that it goes that route. This is a place where all people can come and feel like they are involved, they are wanted, they can be together. And that's what, if you see all the people that's in our DC world, they represent like almost every race. And so they like that collection, and where we able to just step up and just be whatever we want and just enjoy ourselves.
So the next few slides are just BIPOC fan-generated content, things that you see how to see how people are looking for themselves and their own depictions in their characters, in the characters that they see. Just like we said, we talked about that, but you can see it in the fan-generated content, how these questions are being openly discussed in spaces of color, fans of color spaces on the internet. So if you have a group that is mostly Black or Latino or everybody fans, and you'll see these questions like, oh, you saw there was this character and such, and then they begin to discuss the depiction of that character. So like in a regular mainstream anime site, you'll see them discussing and analyzing things about the show, but you'll see in the BIPOC spaces issues of representation coming up, like this one. And this next one was from the recent Pokemon Scarlet Violet trailer. Apparently you can fix your characters to look like you for a change, and they're excited about that.
Well, because even if you look at even like NBA 2K or any of the stuff, like a lot of times, even having a lot of black people in like the NBA, when it comes time to change hair, it's very limited. And that was across all video games. Like you could never get somebody that looks just like you until almost recently.
Yeah.
Because
recently.
like, I can't get my hair like that. What are we doing? So otherwise I have to have a fro like this. Like I'm not Dr. J either. Like, what are we doing?
And last we have a blending of putting ourselves in the character. This is Froku. This is just a minute. No, it's 3 minutes. Let's look at a little bit.
We'll just do a little bit.
All right. Oh, sorry. Can we get out of
You
this?
gotta know that that's happening. A freaking Raid Shadow Legend. You're just trying to watch Roku.
We just want to watch Roku.
That was good transition though. I'm just saying.
It was. Almost half the video is Raid Shadow Legend.
Right? And it's still going.
This is practically just a Raid
I know, it,
Shadow.
it shouldn't even be Roku.
Oh.
All right.
Oh. Oh my God.